We're going to start by correcting the way these are titled. Clearly I was paying attention to something else when I wrote out the title on this, or I copied and pasted it from another place and didn't notice it's BWV 4.8. This chorale to analyze will be a little more difficult to say, oh, this is first year and this is second year, because there's so much that's woven into this that is sort of sophisticated and will make just think of this only if you're first year, a little cloudy or muddy to talk about. But that being said, let's do the basics first, and then let's talk about what ends up being very cool and different about this chorale. We got one sharp here, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at keys, and we're going to look at cadences and things, and it already starts to get kind of messy there, but we'll just start anyways. If you're in one sharp, you think, oh, I'm in the key of G, or I'm in the key of E minor, right? And if we look at our cadences, we should be seeing 1s and 5 chords. So we should be seeing, G chords and D chords there. And here we should be seeing E minor chords and maybe B or B7 chords. Same thing here, D or D7, right there. That's what we should be seeing. And sure enough, we have a B and an F sharp and a D and an F sharp. So that would suggest a half cadence there, but wait, it's crazier than that. But that's what you'd think as a first year student. I'm going to put this here with a question mark, half cadence, question mark, and E minor, question mark, because at the end of the line here we have an E minor chord, E, G, B, E. And if we look before there, we have a B, F sharp, A. This is my 5/7. This is my 1 right there, and this is looks like a perfect authentic cadence. And so yeah, I'd say we're in E minor. But it gets suspicious a little bit, because there's all these other cadences that are kind of weird. For instance, we're here and we cadence on a G, B, D, right? Well, okay, so G is the relative major to E minor. Maybe we shift it over to there. And so this is a G chord right there. And if we look, we've got a D and an F sharp and an A and another A. So this is like a D chord. So it does look like we probably changed to another key. And so this is a 1 chord, and this is a 5. Inversion is 6 because it's a triad, but it's 3rd in the bass. And that means I think I have an authentic cadence here, but since this is inverted and since this is not the root on the top as well, it's not a perfect, it's an imperfect authentic cadence, right? Which is fine, and just going to remind myself we're in the key of G major temporarily right there. And then when we get over to this fermata over here, this next end of the phrase, it's B, D, and we think, oh, is it another half cadence here? But in fact, it's B, F sharp, D natural, right? D natural. And so this is a B minor right there. And 1 chords are major or minor, and 5 chords are major or dominant. We don't usually cadence on a 5/7, like a dominant 7. It happens, but not usually happens. Comes at the end after you've cadenced. So are we in the key of B minor? Well, maybe if this is the key of B minor and this is my 1 chord, right? Then this should be an F sharp chord coming to here, and F sharp, A sharp, F sharp, C sharp. There's my 7th right there. And look, it's F sharp 7, but now we're in the key of B minor. And this is root to root. And coming down to the root, this is a perfect authentic cadence in B minor. So Bach is jumping around all over the place here, which is great. This is like a fantastic chorale, but it's certainly funny to look around here, okay? And this one here, our cadence chord is a C and a G and an E, which is a C major chord. And if this was in the key of C, then we'd expect an F chord right here, or sorry, a G chord right here, and we don't have that. This is a B, D sharp, F sharp, A. So this is a B dominant 7 chord right here, right? Dominant 7 chords are 5 chords. And so we have to start saying, well, what's going on here? Let's just explain this right now, and we'll explain why later. If I'm in the key of E minor, which I started off on, this is my 5 chord, and this is my 6 chord here. And so here we have an exceptional cadence that's not a 1 or a 5 chord, but it's a 5 chord going to a 6 chord right there. Okay, and that's a non-chord tone right there. And there's my 7th, so 5, 7 root position, and 6 is a major triad on flat 6 in a minor key compared to the major. So this is a deceptive cadence, which is a leading tone chord going to not the 1, and usually that's 5 going to 6. There are some variants on that. And then finally over here at the end, this is very typical of many of the Bach chorales that are in minor. If they start in minor, they'll end up in the same home like key in terms of E and E, but they don't like to end on a negative note, and so we have an E, G sharp, B, E, and this is like a E major. We haven't really changed the key of E major. We've talked about this in other videos. It's what we call modal borrowing. He's borrowing the chord from the E major, the parallel major. It's a mode shift. It's not a key shift. They don't think of it that way. It's not a modulation, I guess, is what it is. It's a happy ending, right? So this is a 1, and you would put maybe a bracket around it and say it's modally borrowed. And that means it's from the MB for modally borrowed. It's from E major, parallel major. Think alternative universe. Sometimes we call this particular borrowing a Picardy third. I'm not sure where the name comes from, but that's what they call it over here in America a lot of the times. And then we have our 5 chord right here, which is a B, B, D sharp, the F sharp's holding over, and there's my A, 5, 7. And so this is a perfect authentic cadence in E minor with a Picardy third is the way I like to think of it. Okay, so is this a half cadence? Are we in E minor? We'll find out that's not the case for reasons, but that's what you'd normally think of, and then a perfect authentic cadence. Okay, and then we have shift to the key of G somewhere in here, and we have an imperfect authentic cadence, and then it seems to shift to the key of B minor. We have a perfect authentic cadence, and then it seems like we're back in the key of E minor here, and we have a deceptive cadence, and then we finish up, and we have a perfect authentic cadence, but then we borrow the parallel major. I'm just going to play each one of these so you can hear them. It's kind of strange. So first off, I'm just going to start right there. We have our E minor chord. That's what we expect, right? Oh, sorry. There we go. Looking sideways while I'm looking at the score. I'm looking at my hands. And you'd expect it to go to, it looks like it's going to go to a F sharp diminished chord right here, which would be my 2 chord. But instead, this is raised and that's raised right there. And so it immediately shifts our tonal expectations from, right, to this chord right here. Okay, which is a major chord. We're in the dominant 7th there, and then we're, right, and it keeps doing these F sharps and A sharps, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. And then we go up, right, it keeps climbing. Can't reach that with both hands. There we go. And then there, because it's made for organ or singing, right? And then now we're here. And you'd expect it to be coming down to, you know, like a, you know, the half cadence. But because of these A sharps and C sharps in here, right? So we have, we'd expect it to come down to just the 1 chord right here and sound like, you know, I don't know, like that, or half cadence in B minor or something, right? Instead it goes and shifts to this B major. Now the reason why that sounds interesting, wonderful, or weird is because the whole time we've been doing this, it's been telling us we're in the key of B. Because if you think about this, E minor, okay, so 1 sharp, F sharp. Key of B minor is 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. It's the relative to D minor. And then this A sharp is the leading tone for the harmonic minor that you'd see going in there. So in fact, this whole thing right from the beginning says, oh, we're in E minor, yay. No, we're not. We're actually in key of B minor, okay? And so if we analyze this to begin with, like, okay, this is a 1 chord, right? But then you see this and you go, well, wait, this should be an F sharp diminished chord if I'm in the key of E minor, but it's an F sharp major chord, dominant if you think of that as a 7th. What's happened is we're immediately shifted into the key of B minor. You could even come backwards and say that this is a 4 chord in the key of B minor. That's how he's thinking about it. It's like E minor, fake, not really, and he immediately shifts, and so this is a 5 chord and a 2 inversion for the 7th, or you could just think of it as a passing note, which brings us to our B minor 1 chord, B, D, D, F sharp. So it's a 1, 6, right? And then here with this in between is it's going to be an F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. It's another 5. In this case, 6 inversion right there. And it comes back to another 1 chord right there. This is all in the key of B minor. And then this is another A sharp, C sharp, because it's still C sharp, holding over from there. And then F sharp and E. This is another 5 chord. It's got a 7th on it, and it's in 3rd in the bass, so 6, 5. And then a 1 chord again. And so this whole thing is just 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. It's in our head. You're hearing this sound, and then to hear, you know, it's very much that way. And then this is another 5 chord right here, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. There's my E right there. So this is a 5, right, 7. And this here is what we call an anticipation. It's a special non-chord tone that can be entered by step or skip, but it usually resolves to a chord tone that comes right after. And that can also be done mostly by the same note. It sometimes very rarely jumps to another note, but this is setting up for us to go. I'll play just here again. So I've got this, and I've got this as my 7th, and there's that, and that's an incredibly long reach. Okay, and then we hear this. And what you're expecting is this, because we've been hearing 5 in minor 1, and 5 in minor 1, and 5 in minor 1. But Bach, I'm going to do this in red so it kind of stands out. In fact, I'm going to do this one too, because I think there's a theme going on here. Not a musical theme, but an idea that Bach has going through all of this. Is that this becomes a 1, right? Not a minor 1, but a 1. So in fact, this is not a half cadence at all. This is we're in the key of B minor, right? Key of B minor. And this is a 1 chord, right? And so you go root to root, root position, real 5, 7, root on top, root here. It's a perfect authentic cadence. Okay, and this is the modally borrowed Picardy 3rd, right? Just like down here. So he's setting up. Look, we're gonna be doing this thing where we're gonna begin the piece in a different key, arguably, but in exactly the same way that this is going on down here at the end. Or he's setting it up so you go like, oh, there's cohesiveness there. And then on top of that, this is now a B major chord, not B minor, which equals 5 in the old key again. And so it's a surprise. You get this wonderful happy ending at the first phrase that then can also be, or at least a surprise ending at the first phrase, that also becomes our pivot or reason why we can go back to the key of E minor, which we were suggested at the beginning. Okay, and so it becomes my 1 equals 5, And this is a B, D sharp, F sharp, A, so it's in inversion equals in E minor, because we've shifted back. And you can see that the A sharp is gone, right? It's not there anymore. There's no leading tone taking us to B minor, right? In fact, the D sharp, which is the leading tone that you'd add in from the harmonic minor for E minor, has been reintroduced. And now there's a little ambiguity at first because we're not headed towards the one chord right away, but it gets there eventually. All right? So let's go back. If we're in the key of E minor, E, E, G, B. This is my one chord right there. This is a nothing, right? This is a D, A, D, B. Well, it could be a B, D, maybe B, D, F, A, but that's weird to have a minor 5, right? I think it's more likely that the way this sounds, this is my non-chord tone, and I'll explain why in a minute. See this G chord coming up here, G, B, D, right there? That's my 3, my relative major. And D, F sharp, A, and that matches there, right? And then normal D is subtonic 7, right? And it's in first inversion because the F sharp is in the bass like this. And we use this chord as a way to get to the relative major because D, subtonic 7, this is a 6 for inversion, equals 5 of 3. It's the dominant for the 3 right there, okay? So there's my 3 right there. And here's my E, G, this is E, G, E, and this is a non-chord tone right there. So this is my one chord again. And just in between the beats here, we have an F sharp, A, D sharp, and B, which is a B, D sharp, F sharp, A, which is my 5 chord, right? So he tucks that right in there. And 5th is in the bass, so interesting 4-3 right there, okay? Here we have a A and a C, and we have an F sharp and an E. Maybe one of these is in the chord, maybe one of them's not. We could look at this a bunch of different ways, but let's just look what's coming up. Here's a 5 chord right here, right? If this is an F sharp chord, then it's F sharp, A, C, and E, and that's a 2 chord, which is fine because 2s go there. And without this F sharp, it's an A, C, E, which is a 4 chord. And it's like, which is it? The answer is kind of yes. If it's F sharp, right, the E has got to be in the chord because it's there as well. Then it's F sharp half diminished, which is 2. Can we see this in the video? We can't see this in the video. Sorry. F sharp would be a 2 half diminished 7, and that can go to 5 just fine, but without the E, and I suspect that's already the F sharp, and I suspect this is just a, like a on the beat dissonance or non-chord tone, then this becomes an A, C, E, which is my A chord, which is 4, which is also fine. And I think the simpler explanation is fine. Bach doesn't like to use 4 chords very much in major. They're a little sweet, and he likes to do a 2 in first inversion. But in minor, they're 4 chords minor, and it's perfectly fine. It's not too saccharine for him. And so this would be an A, C, E. That's my 4 right there. Okay, I'm going to shift this back up. I know we lose that little bit there, but then you can see all of it again. Okay. Now, before we go on, I'm just going to play from here to here. And there's something that I think thematically going on through this whole piece because of this Picardy third thing that's happening here. I think Bach is trying to throw unexpected major triads everywhere he can, right? So let's talk about that. At the end of the first phrase, you have this surprise Picardy third making this a major triad instead of the minor one in B minor we were thinking. It's nice because it also functions to pivot, and that's just because Bach is really great at his craft and he's interested in doing things, but unexpected one chord that's major, right? But even right here at the beginning, it's like this should be a diminished 2 right there, And so he starts right there at the beginning like this. And you're thinking, aha, we're going to get our 2 chord now, which should sound like this, right? But he doesn't. He goes, or, no, wrong key, sorry. And then he gets to there. And it's like, oh, it's unexpected major chord, which, you know, becomes dominant, but 1 major. So they've got all these, they're ostensibly 5s of the 5 chord, right? But now it puts us in this key there. And then we get to here, and we have an unexpected major there, because we should be going to B minor. The Picardy third gives us this, this great kind of, wow, so such a big stretch on the hand. You know, it's like surprise, right? And that happens at the end too, because that was an aesthetic that he liked. But even here at the beginning of this next phrase, you know, 3 is fine in the minor key. We go to it because it's the relative major a lot, and he's exploiting this now. So he says, okay, no, I'm back in the key of E minor, but instead of focusing too much on, you know, the 5s and the 1s, there's 5s and 1s, right? But then you get this unexpected major chord here on the subtonic 7, right? Right? There's a major chord right there, which takes us to the relative major, the 3 chord, which is another major chord right here, right? And then he says, okay, now we have to go to cadence, right? So there's an unexpected set of majors that uncommon, I guess, would be, you know, right there as well. So these are all unexpected majors, right? I guess this has got the dominant on it, so maybe it doesn't count as much, but, you know, it's still here, same kind of thing, and there kind of thing like that, right? And when he goes to his next phrase, it looks like he's in E minor, and it looks like he's in E minor there, and that's totally fine. He starts up again in E minor, and there's my 1, right? But look how it ends up again. It's 5, 6, 1. It's the D and the G in the relative major. And I think you have to go like, whoa, there's another unexpected place that we went to. There's my major cadence right there, and there's the major chord coming into it like that. So another unexpected major, right? And we can analyze this going forwards in the key of E minor, but also backwards in the key of G, and find a concordance where we can call it both, or it sort of flips. Like here, this just has gone up and gone up. It's all moved with soprano voicing, so it's E, B, E, G. It's still a 1 chord right there, non-chord tone. This looks like an A chord right here, A, C, A, E, right? And so that would be my 4 chord, right? But this is also 2 in the key of G, right? And these are, you know, starting to look like a B chord with some suspensions, but nah, it's fine. And this is still my, I'm not even going to bother thinking about this in the key of E minor, because I know where my cadence is. So this is still a 2 chord. It's just in root position, right? And now if I think I'm in the key of E minor, this is my, or G major, this is my 6, right? And these here give us leading tone qualities into there. So D sharp, F sharp, A, and C, like these combine together right here to make a nice chromatic chord. D sharp diminished, D sharp, F sharp, A, C, D sharp diminished, which is 7 diminished, because diminished 7 chords are 7 chords in minor, and D sharp is 7 of E, so I'm gonna put the 6, 5 right there of the 6 chords. Just this little reminder taste, like you think you know, you actually hear this as 1, 4, 6, 4, and then 7 going to 1 again, but then it immediately dips out and cadences in G major, telling you, haha, I tricked you, I was always in the key of G the whole time, right? And again, unexpected major. So you can hear this in E minor right there, right? And then our ostensibly 4 chord right now, right? And then to here, and then this these passing notes here make us go 7 of the 6, which is the E minor, right? So this whole pulls us to the E minor chord again. And then it's like, surprise, you thought you were in E minor, but look what our cadence tells us. It's a sweet thing that comes out. Unexpected, right? It's not where we thought we were going to go. Okay? And, yeah, okay. And then we know because of the cadence, we're back in B minor again, right? Which kind of makes sense. We were in B minor to begin with, right? And, you know, so, but this is a G chord, so we're still thinking we're 1, right? And these are passing non-chord tones. And then we have an E and a G and a B and an E. It's an E minor chord, and so you think 6, right? But, you know, you see this D sharp here, right? That's pushing us to the E. And if you want to persist in the key of G, you can say something like, well, this is a F sharp and a D sharp and an A. So D sharp, F sharp, A. That would be D sharp diminished, which would be 7 of the 6 chord right there, right? And that's all good and everything. But, so you're thinking, it's gonna be kind of messy. I'm gonna just do this the first way, like what our expectations are as we listen and look, but then what it really is after we get to our cadence. So this would be 7 diminished, and since D is the root, 6 of 6, right? And we should be going to a 6 right there. Okay, that's fine. You may even think in your ears, oh, are we going back to the key of E minor? Because it goes 1 to 6, which is E minor, which is our original proposition, right? And then there's my 7 chord of it. So maybe you're going like, did we just go to E minor? Question mark, and is which this would be my 1 chord, and this would be my 7 chord, and this would be my 1 chord again, right? Okay. But look at my E chord, E, G sharp. Right? E, G sharp, E, and B. So this is an E major chord, right? And we get this unexpected major chord right there. And you kind of go like, well, where'd that come from? Is it a Picardy third? Probably not. Like you could say we're in B minor. You could say it's a borrowed one. But now this gets kind of deep and weird into theory, but I'm just going to pop over for a second. And just, I think I'm going to put it down here at the bottom. If I'm in B minor, right, then my scale is B, C sharp, D, E, F, right, sharp, G, A, B. That's my natural or pure minor. And then if I were to make it a harmonic minor, I would sharp that. So this is my harmonic minor, right? And we see, you know, that happened up at the top a lot there, right? But there is another scale where if you raise 6 and 7 together on the way up, this is my natural, sorry, not natural. This is my melodic minor. It's early in the day. And I'm rushing to get this done before I run to school. So now, if we use the natural minor, you get a E, G sharp, and B. You get a major 4. It's kind of rare, but it happens when the melody or a line uses the melodic minor ascending. On the way down, it reverts to natural minor. And then serendipitously, this sharp 6, which is, you know, like it would be in the major, if this was B major, shows up in 4 becomes major again. So you can call it modally borrowed from B major, just like the Picardy thirds are modally borrowed from, you know, whichever key you're in, the 1. And that's a way of thinking about it. But it's a function of using the melodic minor on the way up. So this, in fact, is we're in the key of B minor, actually, not E minor. And we get this E major chord. This is my 4 in B minor, right? Because of the natural sorry, the melodic minor ascending scale right there. And you know, we were going like, wait, we thought we were in G, we thought we were in E minor, all of that suggested, and then it's like, surprise, you're not actually, right? Because this is like 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. This is a B natural or melodic minor ascending scale going on there. When that happens, our very next chord is F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, which is the 5 in the key of B minor. And so it's kind of also packaged in there. It's like, surprise, we're actually in the key of B minor. That's what's happening. And we know that because we saw this at the cadence, right? This is my 1 chord, and then we have our 5, 7 like that. So Bach is playing with ambiguity always at the beginning of the phrases, right? It's like, oh, we're in E minor. No, we're not, right? It's like, we're back in the key of E minor. Yes, but we're going to go to the relative major, and it's, you know, using subtonic 7 briefly there. And it's like, oh, we're in E minor. Actually, no, we're not. We're in the key of G. So we're going to play like we're in E minor here, but then the cadence will say, haha, fooled you. Actually, we've been in the key of G, but you didn't know it. And here's another unexpected happy major ending right there. And then it's like, okay, are we persisting in the key of G again? No, well, maybe not, but this looks like 6, which is E minor, 7 of the E minor, and then it's like, whoa, what happened here? And it's like, surprise, we've actually been doing B minor, right? And or we've pivoted to B minor. Like you can go back and call this a minor 4, right? And then you can call this a 6 in B minor, 6 and 4, and then 7 of 6. And then 6 is like, surprise, the natural minor is being used. Sorry, the melodic minor scale is being used. And so this is major stuff. So I'm going to overwrite this in blue. If you think, well, actually, we started in the key of G, but we ended up going to B minor real quick here, then this is actually my normal 4 chord, and this is my 7 diminished 6 of my 4 chord, and then surprise, melodic minor, it's now changed to quality, unexpected major, right? Which is just really cool. All right. Let's keep going because we should finish this off because I do have to go. And then, well, this is an E, G, E, C sharp because that still holds on like that, right? So a C sharp, E, G, this is what, my 2 chord, which is kind of weird to start off on, right? But it's like 2 diminished 6, okay? And again, I don't think when you hear a diminished chord, you can think of it like a 2 chord, like you would in jazz here. This is Bach. And so immediately after we get done this right here, right, the cadence, right, there, okay, fine, B minor. But then you hear this, which can be interpreted as a 2 chord. Really actually is just taking us to here, right? So it's already saying, you're kind of in a different key. These are probably going to be a 7 chord, and so I'm just gonna call this a 7. If it's a 7, then it's a C sharp diminished, which is going to take us to D. And look what our next chord is down here. It's a D major chord, right? Which is another kind of unexpected major chord right there, right? And you can, you know, in a vacuum, if it goes 7-1, you're in the key of D, right? And wait, isn't it just this thing again where we're doing, you know, D subtonic 7 or D, you know, like 5 going to 6? Maybe, but this C sharp here suggests that we're actually in the key of D, right? It's different. If we were just in the key of G, there wouldn't be a C sharp there. It'd probably just be a C natural. So we've pivoted unexpectedly to the key of D, right? So we're actually in D, and it's a 7 chord, okay? And this is my 1 chord, right? And this would be my 4 chord right there. And it's not a 5-1 probably because the C sharp is telling us we're in the key of D, right? F sharp and C sharp is key of D. And D is the relative major to B, okay? And then we have another G chord right here, but it's in first inversion, so it's 4-6. And now this is not C sharp, this is C natural. And so this is now making us say, oh, wait, are we in the key of that anymore? And the answer is not exactly, right? If you take this sharp away, now you've got one sharp, we're in the key of G or the key of E minor, right? So it's sort of maybe both, right? If we're in the key of G, because this has gone away, then this becomes a D7 chord, which would be 5-7. And if we're in the key of E minor, then this becomes my subtonic 7. And that is, you know, another surprise, like what's going on here, right? But look where we head to right now. It's there. Now, I don't think we're in the key of E minor yet. There's nothing to suggest that. We haven't seen a leading tone, and our ears are tonally set up to say we've been in the key of D, now something else, right? But, and it's, you know, either way, 4 goes down to 7, right? Okay, by circle of fifths, okay? And then here we have an E minor chord right here, E, G, B. So this is E minor chord right there, which you can say, oh, well, then this is a deceptive cadence. Well, cadence progression, 5 going to 6. Or you can say, this is my 1 chord, but I still think it feels like that. It's deceptive, right? You go 1, D major, go 4, 1, still 4, and then, but then it goes like, it's like the 5 of 4 is what this feels like. Still in the key of D, but becomes a 5 of 4, right? But instead of going to 4, it goes to 6, which is a deceptive progression, right? To here, right? So I feel like the whole thing feels acceptably like we're in the key of D, right? Like if this is in the key of D, then, you know, like you thought maybe that, but then it's, you know, it's an acceptable progression to go, this is 5-7 of 4, right? And then instead of 4, it goes, no, I'm going to go to my, you know, my 2 chord, my 6 chord, sorry, 6 chord right there, right? And, sorry, this would have been, I wrote this wrong. It's not 6, it's like 5 going to a, yeah, going to a 6. It feels like a deceptive progression though, here, right? Which is good because if you look at the very next, the cadence says I'm, you know, got a 5 chord, B7 in the key of E minor. So now our ears are reoriented 1, 5, 7, and then this is a deceptive cadence right there. So he sets up his deceptive sound right there, and then he gives us surprise. We're actually in the key of E minor because of this 5-7 chord, but surprise, you get this wonderful deceptive progression right there. So, you know, here it's like we go, and then we're on our 1 chord, and then a 4 chord, right? And then still 4 chord, but then this is like, hey, what's going on, right? And then you go like, oh, well, maybe it's just coming to key of G, but then it gives us a deceptive progression sound here. And then it says, only kidding, here at the cadence, you'll find that we either have been in or we've pivoted to. And we should be getting an E minor chord here, like this. But instead, he goes, surprise major chord. Because it's in the deceptive progression in minor gives us a major 6, right? And so there's another surprise major. Right. All right, I'm just going to finish up to the end. I think we can do the rest of this in key of E minor. I know that this is a G chord right here, right? And we're sort of saying like, haha, if I'm in the C, then this is G, and it's sort of displaying this game right here. This is G major, right? And if you want to think of it back in these other keys, then it's like 4 from D major, or you can think of it as 6, sorry, E minor, you can think of it like relative major 3, you know, I think, you know, or you can even think I'm in the key of C suddenly, and this is my 1 and 5, and Bach's having great fun with us. But I think given that, you know, this happens right after, and we know what the cadence is right here, we're just going to say, okay, we're finishing up here. There's a little ambiguity here, but when push comes to shove, the next chord here is like an F sharp A, D sharp, F sharp. That is my 7 diminished in the key of E minor. So we're just going to call this E minor for the end, right? 7 diminished, oops, not inverted, sorry. And then if you stick the B on there, then it becomes a 5, 7. We're in the key of E minor. Here's my E minor chord, E, G, B. This is a beautiful suspension right there. And this is my leading tone. So these are actually changing tones, suspension, changing tone, and then into my, you know, my resolution there. So this is my 1 chord. And then we have a C, E, and a G, right? And it's a, you know, it's going to be my 6th chord, right? I guess. I mean, this is holding over, so 6, which then changes into the F sharp right there, making this a non-chord tone. So F sharp A, C, which would be my 2, little circle of fifths, 2 diminished 6, right? Resolves down. I mean, you can call that a 7th, and then you could go half diminished 6, 5 if you want to, and then 5, right? B, D sharp, F sharp, 5, 7, 1, and then surprise at the end, another thing right there, like that, okay? And this whole thing is about, like, surprise. You get a wonderful major chord somewhere where you weren't expecting it, like right at the beginning, which then gives us, oh, we're in the key of B minor, but then surprise Picardy third, which then turns us into the key of E minor as the 5 chord again. We go to the relative major through the subtonic just for moments inside there. And then from here, you think you're in E minor, but then surprise, we're going to the relative major, and you have a lovely major sounding cadence that's unexpected there. And then here, using the the melodic minor coming up in the key of B minor, which changes my 4 chord into a major chord there. Again, unexpected and fairly rare, right? And then we pivot over to D major, which is surprise because we thought we were in B minor. And then here we have a little deceptive progression. Although this isn't a major chord there, it sets up the high. We're actually in the key of E minor, and this is my deceptive progression. And this gives me a surprise major chord there. And then our Picardy third right there. One last thing I just want to talk about all these keys, like where do they come from? We have a thing we do in our theory class where we draw a box and we get relative major and minor and closely related keys. So if this says I'm in E minor, the relative major is G major, right? This is 1 sharp, right? And you can look and say, well, B minor is closely related because it's 2 sharps, and D major is the relative major to that. And then, you know, down here, you can go in the other direction and say A minor, right? And that's 0, and then C major. And it's not always the case, but 0 sharps or flats, right? But if you think about this as home, right, then a lot of times the music, when you say, like, where is he going to? Why did he pick all these places? Well, look, he starts in E minor, and then he says, surprise, we're in B minor. And he says, okay, actually, we're in there, right, that. And then he says, okay, well, actually, now we're in G major, right? So then he jumps to here, right? And then he says, only kidding, we're back here. And then he says, actually, we're right here again, right? And although this doesn't happen, he does do the deceptive progression, which suggests, you know, that C is important, and then he comes back to here, and then he bails out and does E major at the end because he wants a happy ending, right? This is important because it tells you where to look and what to suspect for keys. So if you draw this little box and say, what key am I in, what's the relative major or minor, go plus a sharp and minus a sharp, or add a flat. You'll get key areas that are what we call closely related or related keys that are sort of the sandbox in which these composers like Bach would say, I'm going to go to this area or that area and things. You know, there's that. I know this is a little more mix up of first and second year stuff together, and it's just kind of fun to look at it thematically, but I hope that's useful for you. It will be used in our classes both first and second year as well. All right?